for our city, and we thank you, Father, in Jesus' name.
Of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez. Here. Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Thank you. At this time, looking for a motion to approve council minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We're going to open up to our comments from the general public. I'd like to invite Pastor Ward. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I hear fireworks went well. Glad you had a good time in the park. And things are in order for Saturday. I just want to thank so much the city and the departments, police and fire department. What an asset they are to be there. But we've been so blessed. Actually, we've got 300 backpacks ready to go Saturday. And Volunteer Way came in and they gave us a pallet of iced tea, a pallet of juice, a pallet of water, a pallet of chocolate chip cookies, a pallet of Frito-Lay chips, and I mean, we're talking 6 foot tall, a pallet of water, and a pallet of school supplies. And as I say, we got 300 backpacks ready to go. The Christian Motorcycle Association is preparing and buying the food to help us out. We're going to have special music, testimonies, and of course, testimonies of hope and prayer for the families and children as they get back to school, and see if we can help them in doing that. So I just want to appreciate the city being a part of it. And if you know families that need help getting back, let us know. We hope to make some contacts to meet more needs in the community. Also, the next event I want you to keep in mind is our Care Fest, September 24th. That's where you have, well, what we've done is people with code enforcement that just can't do it, particularly elderly. Like Newport Richey Code Enforcement called us, some lady need help, and we got a crew over. So any projects between now, that'll be the last Saturday of September. So if you know somebody having a problem, things like mowing grass, cleaning up the yard, trimming hedges, even have painted and built wheelchair ramps. And, this is all over the Bay Area. We've done it for years, never had any problem with it. We got the release forms, and it's just really, really a good time where we invite all the people that love the Lord and want to show His love in a practical way to come out and serve. And we'll be there, of course, in Waterfront Park, spreading out from there, so whatever we can do there. Thank you for letting us be a part of Port Richey, and we just want to keep helping and serving, and thank all of you, and Lord bless you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ward. The next person that signed up is Pat Rogers. Welcome.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I have a question. When my parents bought that house in 1964, at both ends of Sunset, there was a ramp where Pier comes down and you make the left turn onto Sunset. There was a ramp there that it was a riprap, gravel, rock, just where people could launch small boats, and the same thing over by the condos. And I just wondered if there was any way for that to be done again, because there's people that come borrow my ramp that live in the condos because there's nowhere else they can put their kayak in easily. And I don't think it would take a whole lot to clean up the Brazilian peppers that have kind of moved in there and just open it back up enough so that people could walk out there. Also, right there, just before you turn onto Sunset off of Pier, Duke Energy has torn up the road, and right now the ditch is about like this. It's really, really quite the deep ditch. And is there any way we can get them to put more dirt or gravel or something in that hole?
That's all that signed up. By show of hands, anyone else that would like to speak? Not seeing the other hand go up. We'll move on to comments from our city manager. I'll invite Mr. Duke to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Works is continuing to do prep work on lift stations, getting them ready for renovation. We're making progress on those. Right now, Public Works is out working lift stations due to rain and power outages. So they're coordinating with Duke Energy to get those back up and going. And so if you see Mr. Licari duck out of here in a hurry, he's going out to help Richie and the team. So those guys are out working this evening. Over the weekend, they were out all night working on a 8-inch water main break. So guys are putting in a lot of time and energy. I had the opportunity to meet with Pasco County grant manager. The city is a recipient of CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds. The county is the recipient. Some of those funds are passed through to the city. We've got funds that we've received over the last 3 years that we have not spent. And so I'll be working with the county grant manager to make sure that we get that money spent appropriately according to CDBG guidelines. You'll see proposals coming your way once we've got some idea of what kinds of projects might be suitable for CDBG funds. But we're talking about $62,000, and so that'll be coming your way soon. Had the opportunity to meet in person with Pasco County EDC representatives. I believe that was last Friday. We have already begun sending asset information to them so that they can put that into their database. And by asset, I mean properties that would be amenable to development. And so when they are marketing and when businesses come to them, they've got a list of properties that might be available for development. So we're sending information to them. They're also going to be contacting property owners here in Fort Ritchie to add to that list. I've gotten all of the after action reports from departments. I'm working on the final, the overall after action report, but from all departments, it looks like everything went well. We had good planning, we had good response, had no crises with fireworks. So you'll have an AAR coming your way very soon. I did send out a note yesterday afternoon. One of our team members was hospitalized. She was back home. Things are stabilized, but just want to bring you up to speed. Veronica is at home and resting. She called in this morning, said she thought she might be able to come in. We threatened her, told her don't even think about it. So she's at home, hopefully taking it easy. I'm planning on having a budget session in 2 weeks, so I know we're all excited about that. Bring a draft budget your way and we can work through that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I stand for your questions.
If I can open up, I had a couple different questions. One of them had to do with the Restore Act, and I didn't know if I can address it now or if we have to wait till the CRA meeting, but I was hoping to ask about the CRA monies that we've been, dealing with for the last.
I'm not exactly sure what the subject is, but if the subject is the CRA, it would be more appropriate since it's not on either agenda unless you feel it's more city business. I'm not sure from what you said. Well, there's nothing wrong with talking about it here, but
okay.
You should also talk about it there again, I guess.
Okay. The question I had is if we had an update from the Treasury or from the county.
No. We have been, well, let me clarify that. We've not had an update from Treasury. We've been in contact with Treasury employees, with county employees, and working on updating our multi-year plan, our portion of the multi-year plan. But no word from Treasury that we've been waiting for over a year now.
And it was my understanding that our previous project had already been taken off the list with the Treasury.
That's correct. Without notifying the city.
So good thing we decided to reapply.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was.
Well, good thing we decided to continue to engage with the county and with the Treasury to actually be notified of that.
And the issue was communications, because it's a pass-through fund basically. So communications between the county and the Federal Reserve where the issue was.
Correct.
So anything that we need to do better that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. We will continue to engage with Treasury and county.
The other question I had is concerns with the budget, I know that in the past, at least half of our dais has been here, we've at least had a few workshops by now. One of the things that I asked for a reason previous is to handle some of the big ticket items beforehand, which we've done in terms of some of the specific departments. So I just wanted to ask that if we're going to have a budget meeting 2 weeks from now, if that's when it's going to be set, if we can have the budgets well in advance, so, because I know there's a lot of line items that I'd like to look through, and I wanted some time with the budget before we come in, and I wanted to know if there's a time frame that we'll actually have a rough draft before we come into the budget meeting.
Let me defer to Rachel.
Yes,
Put you on the spot.
Okay, perfect. And then the only other concern that I had is in the past, during the workshops, I know there was a statutory time frame to set the tentative millage rate. And we would do that normally during a workshop, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to know when that deadline is, and make sure that we.
No, that has to be a meeting. That's a meeting, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
No, that's a vote of the council. There's a deadline for that, right?
Yes.
We do have to determine the first public hearing, the date of that, tonight, because it's due next Thursday.
No, I meant the date when we set the tentative maximum millage rate. Tentative millage rate, I guess is technically.
Right. That's at the first public hearing.
Jimmy, that's a standalone item. I know there's a date for that, and it's coming up soon.
Yeah, I think there's a date, and I was afraid we'd miss it. We'd normally set it by now, or would be talking about
I
it.
was gonna bring that up in comments later, but.
And I was asking, because it was.
We did it last year. Last year, I think it was August 4th. That's what had me concerned.
Because I just want to know when the deadline is, because if we're coming up on the deadline, I think that we need to have an emergency meeting to beat the deadline, because it's going to be voted at a regular council meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is August 4th for that.
It is August 4th,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So it's August 4th.
And we have to provide the preliminary public hearing date.
Well,
And time.
but don't they need the tentative millage rate on that date?
Yes.
Well, that has to be voted on by council, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it has to be voted on by council, so
So we have to have an emergency, no, do we have another what's our
Special
next
meeting,
No.
whatever kind of meeting you want to call
We
it.
don't have
August
another
4th
meeting
is next
Next
week.
Thursday.
Right, so we either need to handle that tonight and amend the agenda,
You can't set a train tonight without them being on.
You have to have a
or we're gonna have to have an emergency meeting.
Sure, yeah, I was thinking, I thought that today, it is August 4th, right?
Yes, correct. And that's
Of
next
course.
Thursday.
Right, it's next Thursday, correct.
Next week.
Yeah, we're gonna have to at some point.
It's gotta be there by August 4th.
Right.
Right, so that gets you till next Wednesday,
So
in personal delivery.
I guess I was concerned because I don't want to miss these deadlines, so.
No.
So, and I know this is during commentary to our city manager, Mr. Duke, so I'll redirect it back to him. We normally also had a rough draft of the budget, so we could set a tentative millage rate. We would know if it was going up or down. So if we have a rough draft of the budget by, let's say, Thursday or Friday this week, could we set a meeting maybe next Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yes. And that would just be the only item on it is the tentative millage rate? Or did you guys want to make that a workshop too, since we'll have the rough draft
Can't be workshop.
afterwards?
However you want to do it. I mean, we need to do the meeting. That's what we need to deal with.
Yeah.
But do we want to talk about the budget at least once before we set the tentative millage rate, I guess is where I'm going.
Well, I can only, what you guys have done has been, what we've done similar is we just kind of set it, like
One
a mill above, what it is now to give us breathing room. We don't, generally, in my experience, we didn't put a lot of time in it because we set our ceiling high. A lot of the other entities right now, the county and such, they're coming in and basically setting their tentatives at exactly what they're planning on doing. We traditionally go a mill above or something. Okay. So, I wouldn't say we need a whole lot of background data to set a tentative millage rate. That's just a legal requirement of the budget process.
Okay. So you guys comfortable? Let me go around just by consensus. Number one with the meeting, are you okay with that? Yes. I see you nodding yes. Yes. And I guess the next question is what day is everyone available and what time? Because we're gonna have to coordinate everyone's schedules while we're sitting on the dais probably.
Tuesday works good for me.
Yeah, I'm
Tuesday
good.
or Wednesday.
Well, I think Wednesday's kind of close.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah, for Tuesday?
That would be the second.
Yes, Tuesday.
Tuesday'd be good for me.
Can we do it at 7 o'clock like we do our regular scheduled meetings?
You can do it anytime you want.
Is 7 good? Because a lot of us work, so.
Yeah, 6 or 7, either one for me.
Do you have a preference?
Oh, none whatsoever. Maybe a little earlier, depending on how long it's gonna drag on.
You want to try 6:30, guys?
I'm good for 6:30.
6:30?
Yeah, I mean, being a special meeting, it's a single issue. The single issue is setting the trim. Setting the trim. It's not going to take a long time.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure everyone can be here for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So are you okay? Yep. Getting the notices out and setting that?
We'll get that out tomorrow.
Okay. And I believe that's all I had. I'm sorry I brought all those up in the city manager spot instead of the commentary, but they were kind of directed at him, so.
And everyone waives any of the note, calling the meeting and all of that, right? You're supposed to do a special meeting. Somebody signs it, somebody backs it up. So we're all waiving all of that, right? We're just going to do a special meeting.
Yes.
Just for the
We all agree,
okay.
so yes.
Great.
So actually, you don't need to do any of that. We have the subcommittee.
There's some questions for Mr. Dude, so I got off track a little bit. Sorry about that. I'll start actually to my left with Councilwoman Rodriguez.
we talked last meeting about the parking on the grass and the trailers and stuff like that. What was that? We didn't get that information. We were gonna get the beauty code and stuff so we can review it.
If you're not familiar with Muni Code online, I can get that information to you.
Hang on, didn't you get it?
No.
You didn't get an email from me? I sent it to all five of you. Did you get it?
No, I got and read everything. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, I might have missed it. I'm sorry, I'll look at it then. Okay, thank you.
I probably have a copy with me.
Okay, perfect, thank you then.
Okay. But
Thank you.
check it, because
I
I'm
will
not
check
sure
it.
it's the first time I've ever emailed you. It could have been
Okay.
a mistake, okay?
And by the
I
way,
will
thank
check.
you. I got mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna, Councilman Colombo.
I would just comment that, yeah, the way our current agenda is structured, the comments from the city manager tends to like roll into general questions to the city manager. And the next item obviously is comments from the mayor and city council. And yeah, I think if we focus more on this particular item after, our city manager gives his comments, to specifically stick to what he had just spoken about and save our stuff for comments from mayor and city council, maybe a little less confusing. And I know there's certain times that I've done the same, somebody said something, I said something, we rolled into a whole bunch of discussion, and then we go to comments from mayor and council, we got nothing to talk about because we just talked about it under comments from the city manager. So I would just suggest perhaps we either focus on that or whatever. But as far as that goes, under particularly, do I have anything to speak to what Mr. Dude spoke of right now? I do not.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Vice Mayor? Okay. And then we'll move on to commentary, which my comments were directed to Mr. Ditz. I brought him up already. And I was going to start with my left, Councilwoman.
I did have one thing. I was lucky enough to figure out that we have a residential grant program for our residents, and I know this is CRA related, but I just wanted to bring it up here because not everybody watches the
It's
CRA
okay to do
meetings
that.
too.
I'm
I
more
just
concerned
want-
that it's brought up there too.
Yeah, I will, and I will. But for our residents, if you have issues with exterior stuff, exterior doors, windows, roofs, anything like that, call the city. They have a great information packet that will help you to get maximum of $1,000 every 24 months to help you with keeping up the exterior of your home. So I got the packet, it's really great. So please look into that if you need help.
And can I comment on that just for a moment? I think that our city's going to have to probably redo the packet, because I think that as we change our CRA boundaries, the homes that qualify are going to change too. So we need to
Yes.
probably at some point modify that packet so the general public has accurate information
Yes.
as to whether or not they're going to qualify. Because I think that as we shrink our CRA boundaries, less and less homes will qualify for that particular program.
Yes.
And I think that we need to make sure that documents reflect that.
I did speak to Mr. Dutton. He had Sal go into our city website and put that information up there. I spoke to Veronica, and they were going to put tips up on, frequently asked questions, et cetera, from the residents to make it a little bit more user-friendly and helpful to them. So that's been one. Even my daughter texted me today and asked me about it. So I'm very happy that it's going to get out there, and hopefully residents will use it to help their exterior of their house make things look a little bit better. That's all.
I just might add to that, that has been on the city website for quite a long time, just down a level or two under certain departments, but that program has been there, it has been on the website. It's nice that we floated it to the top and drew attention to it, because nobody's talked about it in quite some time. But obviously, it's going to need some modification as we move down the road. But that's for discussion with CRE, of course. My only other thing was I wasn't here at the last meeting, and there was discussion on the stormwater impact fees, which obviously we need to do something about. I would like to see us maybe, as we go through the budget process, focus a bit on what we might want to see as far as our city's plans with stormwater moving forward, other than just cleaning out ditches and pipes. Essentially, that's what we do now, which is great. Obviously, we've not heard a lot of the flooding issues on a lot of roads we used to hear about in the past. So we are getting the water out, but as far as actually addressing stormwater treatment, we're not treating any stormwater at all. We're not doing anything as a city as far as having projects for retention, projects for deep water injection wells, whatever, to actually treat the water and not put it into the natural waterways. And as I'm sure Mr. Dude will tell you, and our grant person will tell you, that there is grant monies out there if you're treating stormwater. There's no grant money to help you rush it into a natural waterway. But if you come up with a program to treat it before it gets in that natural waterway, there is money to be gotten. So I just think that we need to expand our focus on stormwater management. It's not just, again, cleaning out ditches and rushing the water into the canals or into the bayou. It's about actually managing stormwater, which the county's doing and various other municipalities are doing too. So it's kind of like, if we're going to talk about setting the rate, we also need to keep in mind just exactly what do we plan on doing here, besides the obvious cost of operating the system the way we're operating it now.
And if I can add to that, is that all you had?
Yeah, that was my basic question, yeah.
One of the issues that I had with stormwater is I know that the county, I think they had a $5.1 million study done in this area. And one of the concerns is they're moving more and more water down that Ridge Road corridor, which is going to dump into the city. So I think there needs to be some communication, I think, between our city management and the county to figure out what's going to happen with all that water.
Because we're the end of the line, yeah.
We're the end of the line. So the water's coming here, and we probably want to preempt issues here by talking to the county now about what they're going to do with this water and dump in the city. And that was one of the concerns that I was going to bring up at some point, and we probably need to have some kind of dialogue as they're in their, I think, study phase right now for that. So,
and I agree. Any study phase they're doing, we should be somewhat involved with that, because obviously, again, yeah, it's coming to our city eventually, or close to it. I know Salt Springs gets pretty big.
Or through our city, it's going to happen already.
Yeah, through our city. Yeah, I know a lot gets dumped in Salt Springs, but that's a state issue.
But if the water's coming through here, we may want to have some dialogue to see if there's going to be some help with funding to move it from here to where it needs to go.
Would they be obligated to work with us if that's their intention?
I don't think they have to, but I think they probably will.
Well, I mean, I would say that, arguably that the county is obligated, when they're working on stormwater management, to work on it from point A to point Z. If point Z happens to be in our municipal boundaries, well, it's still their stormwater. They still have to take some responsibility for that. So I would argue that should be part of their plan, but they may have attorneys that argue otherwise, so I don't know.
But I think it's better if we just reach out and see what's going on.
It's always better to just reach out in a friendly way, sure.
I like that idea.
I know Mr. Duke doesn't really have much else to do, so I'm sure he'll have time to do it.
Yeah, he got nothing.
I will make contact with the county.
Job security.
Thank you, Mr. Duke.
Yes, sir.
I have nothing.
Vice Mayor?
I have nothing.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
The standard is mutually compatible stormwater management programs is mandatory.
Oh, I like that.
You like that?
I do.
Yeah, you could, lawyers make a lot of money on that. We could argue about that all day. Yeah. But you're correct. I'm substantiating what you're saying.
Will we pay the
It's
stormwater
relatively
fee?
new. It's relatively.
I like to email that to me, because
Yeah.
I won't remember it, but I'll want to know it.
He'll want to use it in the
I
future.
want to use it somewhere along the line.
So either we're gonna pay lawyers or pay the stormwater fee, one of the
Okay, I
two.
can give you that. I have lots of.
No comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I think that closes out commentary from our board.
Well, you're all over this, aren't you? I didn't even talk to you about this. Here's the piece of paper,
I
right?
know what you're thinking.
Damn, you good.
All right, let's move on to the consent agenda, looking for a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Before we put it to a vote, I see that there's in the consent agenda, general fund, utility, stormwater fund, and CRA. If there's any CRA mixed in here, does that have to go on separate or?
There's no CRA.
Okay, just caption there.
I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, that's just, I guess permanently it could come off of that, off the agenda.
Right.
Form, yeah.
The title.
I just wanted to make sure we're not voting on CRA stuff.
No,
Okay.
that's left over.
That's the only question I had.
I noticed it. I'll explain.
Ready to put it to a vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That moves us on to council business. And this is a purchase request for the fire department skid unit. And I'm going to pass that over to Mr. Ditt for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see in your packet, this is a removable, self-contained pump tank and hose skid unit that would go in the F-350 flatbed. This allows the fire department to more readily access tighter spaces, basically, by using a smaller truck. There's limits to where engine 42 can go, and so if they have this unit, it's slid into the truck and mounted, and and in particular, the wild lands and brush areas around Avila Bay can be problematic for fighting fire with an engine. So Chief Paul Castries put this together, and it's going to help him and his guys get into those tighter spaces. Because it is directly related to Avila Bay, we're proposing funding that out of impact fees, fire impact fees. And would request a motion to approve the purchase.
I'll open it for discussion and or motion at this time.
Well, I'd like to say how much I like the sound of the wild land.
There are a few.
I do have one quick question on that. I know this is a budgeted item. Obviously, we're purchasing the truck. Is right now this the sole remaining item to outfit that truck, or are we tracking within our budget for outfitting that truck, or how does this fit in the grand scheme of outfitting that truck in terms of our budget?
Yeah, it was a budgeted item. The truck was the first purchase. Once we validated that the VIN number was assigned and the truck is definitely coming, this is the next step to convert that truck to a firefighting capable truck. And then the last thing you'll see will be the lighting package, which we're working on now. We just didn't want to present those all until we validated the truck was definitely coming in this uncertain times. So but yes, it's all well within our budget. Actually, things are, the moment seemed like they're coming in a little cheaper than we anticipated, so.
Then I won't complain.
Words you don't hear a lot.
And one of the questions I have is this is a piece of equipment that we've never had in the past in our city.
The goal was, part of the capital improvement plan, we had to replace a 20-something-year-old truck. To answer your question, yes, it's something we never had. We had to replace a 20-something-year-old vehicle. So as part of that, my team got together and decided, hey, if we can replace this, what can we do to make the best thing that we can possibly have, but still stay within the budgetary constraints that we currently have? So without any extra budgetary constraints, what can we do? The vehicle we have now is just a people mover. So this allows us to have a vehicle that's a people mover, that's first response capable, that's firefighting capable, that's brush fire capable, that's four-wheel drive, can pull the boats and go into high water areas and handle the wildland urban interface. Again, so we're taking that vehicle that's a SUV people mover and converting it into something that can do so much more, all within the budget that we currently have.
And I guess the question is, what's changed within the city where we need this equipment where we haven't needed it in the past?
Last year we had, in the last year we've had 0 structure fires and we've had 31 outdoors type fires. So there's 31 times that this vehicle would have responded without a doubt, plus. So again, as part of that capital improvement process, I looked at our vulnerability, our call load, and what can we do to make things better and cheaper. So instead of running the big apparatus to some of this stuff, we have the capabilities of converting this 20-year-old vehicle. We have to buy a new one. So in this process, my team came up with this whole concept, which is we call it a brush truck because we can't call it an everything truck. So it's called a brush truck on a radio or in a CAD system. That's what it'll be called. But it's actually, it's an alternative response vehicle because it can do so much.
So this can go like in all little, not like marshy, not really marshy, but
It's four-wheel drive.
really wet.
Yep, designed to go off-road.
The wildlings, yeah.
And all little tight places off of Washington Street.
It sounds like we need it. You said 31, you said 31?
It's an F-350. I mean, it'll go where F-350 will go. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, as you say, whenever, of those areas of our city that are somewhat wooded or brushy, those are the places that you can't drive into 42 into. So, having a smaller.
You just can't get it back out.
Yeah, you got one shot at it.
That's another vehicle. We need a fire truck retrieval vehicle.
Which we thought about that. This has its own retrieval system attached to it. It comes with a winch.
It's called a winch.
Yeah.
So the other question is this is a budgeted or non-budgeted? Because I don't remember budgeting this from last year.
It's budgeted.
It's budgeted under the overall truck, correct?
The truck was paying for Pasco. Captain Quinn's responsible for new equipment.
Okay.
The truck was budgeted for the outfitting and lighting. The fire pump was budgeted under fire equipment in this year's budget. It was put in front of you guys in the capital improvement as a fire pump and skid unit, I think is what we listed it as. Yeah, penny for Pasco. When we sat down with the city manager and Rachel, impact fees are very restricted on where we can't use those for. We thought we could potentially use them to add some equipment, but because it's not related to that impact of that facility or that area, this is what we were able to do. So we're actually going to not fund this out of penny for Pasco and fund it out of the impact fees that we have to use for something fire related anyway.
Well, let me ask you, if we're talking about fixing forest fires throughout the city, how are we going to tag one particular development for impact fees for this?
It's the wildland urban interface that now faces us, right? So now you have the state park that butts up to the Avila Bay. It also deals with part of this money was also from Abigail Court, correct? Yeah, there was multiple properties that put in this little pot. Yeah, Abigail Court, the Washington Street project which backs up to a heavily wooded area. So everything where the money has come from for this project from those projects does have a heavily wooded area next to it. The state park is, I think, the last I checked, we have 400 acres of the state park, but there's much, much more of the state park.
Are we responsible for that, or is there another?
Our city jurisdiction, where our boundary is. So if you were to take the entrance of the state park and run it just right before the bathroom as you go in, then the home on the backside, that's state park area. But it's the urban interface that faces that for that vehicle to combat the fires, that if that park was to catch fire and we need to protect, our job is to protect the homes in that area, this truck's going to assist us in protecting those homes in that area. Yep, right by Abigail Court. Yeah, that area, the stuff that. So again, this was something we put in front of you guys in the budget process. The reason why it's not coming to you until now. So we wanted to ensure that we're going to have the truck. You know, everybody knows there's supply chain issues. And not knowing if we're going to have a truck, you know, we don't want to commit to something and have a pump sitting there and then never have a truck arrive.
Before we put it to a vote, anyone from the general public want to speak? And then the only other issue is, before we vote, I've just never voted on equipment for out of impact fees. Normally, you use it for water supply, fire hydrants, and stuff like that. Normally, so I just want to make sure we're pulling this from the right pool of money before we put it to a vote. I didn't know if there's if that's a legal question or a management budget question. I may direct to.
My understanding is, of course, you know, from a legal standpoint, impact fees are paid by development to a city for the impact it has on the city.
Sure.
Now, are we line iteming this as impact fees from a bill of pay? Or we have a pot of impact fees that the other developments we've talked about have paid into, and we're paying it out of that impact fee fund. So if it's the latter, not an issue. If there's a certain dollar amount that was paid by a bill of pay, and you're dedicating all of it to that, well, then I can see your point.
Because you got a new development that's coming in, and I know there's a wooded area there.
Right.
The problem is I don't want a development coming in and saying, look, you overcharged us impact fees to buy equipment that you needed for the rest of the city, and that's not fair. And I just want to make sure that doesn't create any legal issues if we.
No, that's not the analysis. Rachel probably discussed this 100 times, correct me. But the impact, if a new development comes in, we can charge the new development for the direct impact, which is not an impact fee for anything it costs us to come into the city. Impact fees are for an expansion of the system. It can't be for maintenance. It's so, in other words, if somebody put a development over here, we got big enough that we needed something more. Okay, it's for something new, not to maintain something we have. For the expansion of the system. Water capacity, you know, let's say you had sewer, you know, well, you're now going to have to increase the size of your sewer plant, or you're going to need more pumps. So it's just the opposite, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't have anything to do with their impact. It's impact on the whole system now. You know, can't be for maintaining anything, whether that's an impact on the whole system. I'm not sure I heard that, but, you know, you tell me it's your decision whether it's an impact on the system.
Well, if that's
this is fire, I presume this is fire impact fees, right?
Right, specific to fire.
Sure. So if you needed bigger towers, so you had better radios, you needed a bigger truck because your area is bigger, you have more areas to cover because that's expanding. You know, maybe the argument that, well, you know, we now have 20% of our, you know, expansion on brush areas. Perhaps that meets that standard, but that's up to you to meet that standard. So it can't be for maintenance, just an expansion of that. I think that's the exact word, right? It's a state statute for all impact fees across fire, water, over.
And so the rationale is the impact is because it's a wooded area and we're building around the wooded area now. We need that truck to get in. That's what I understand it to be.
Yeah, multiple areas.
Yeah. The city might just be growing to the edge of the woods, right? That's your best argument.
More and more we build along the wood line, right?
And I'm not opposed to this. I just want to make sure that we're drawing from the right pot of money and we're doing it correctly if we're when we vote on it. So theoretically, that means we should have an extra $16,000 in our penny for Pasco at the end of the year.
Right. Well, you're saying penny for Pasco is
because that's what it's budgeted for.
That's a different subject. I've been discussing impact fees. I mean, that's what I've been hearing since I sat down. I didn't hear penny for Pasco. That's a different fund and has different purposes.
Well, what I understood, this was budgeted for penny for Pasco.
Oh, I don't know. I just
that's what I heard someone say over here.
Yeah. Then it got switched.
It got switched to the impact fees.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure it meets the standard for the impact fees.
So, yeah,
And it was my decision to direct the line item, the funding to come from impact fees after Rachel and I had spent a good deal of time beating up on Chief Policastri, because it's the word expansion that, I wanted Chief to justify to me. And those developments that have gone in next to Woodlands, created a need for us to have a different type of vehicle. So I am comfortable with, this is as you questioned, this is a growth of the fire department equipment and capacity. And the need is driven by a high value, relatively new, high value structure in the Washington Street area, in Avila Bay, in a couple of other places. And we even looked at response areas, and I came to the realization that even if the fire starts in the state park, I don't want it coming into our city. And I'm comfortable with that truck and that configuration going off-road and meeting the fire, whether it's in the state park or it's already come into the city. So I think you and I are in violent agreement, I guess. I've worked the chief over pretty hard to answer that question.
I just might point out that is how it's said in the agenda. The funds will come from the fire department impact fees. So.
Correct. And that was,
again, though, I will add, we could buy this out of penny per Pascal if you wanted to.
That's correct, because it's a capital expenditure.
My rationale for that was, if we have an opportunity to appropriately utilize impact fees, and that's why I had to hear from the chief that we have a different firefighting need. We need to expand our system. I've, shall we say, strongly encouraged him not to take engine 42 into the woods. But the fires start there and come into there. So I just wanted you to know I got comfortable with the requirements before I put it on here. We can buy it out of penny for Pascal.
Well, and again, if it fits the requirements, which to me it appears it does, come out of the fire department impact fees, penny per Pascal from our standpoint is a broader pot that we can spend in a lot of different ways. If this is something specifically we can take out of the impact fees, that's definitely the way to go.
No, I get that. I just didn't want to spend it and then be tagged for spending it appropriately in an audit. So
I agree.
So that was a concern. And if we're saying that it's these new developments that created the need for this truck, which paid in the impact fees, I'm comfortable with that. Which I just wanted to flush that out before we voted on it.
No, it's a good question.
So that's all that I had.
You can even look at it a separate way. Does the additional developments require the need for a secondary truck, brush truck, or not? And even then, it still qualifies under impact fees.
All right, you guys ready to vote?
I have one question. Got 3 bids. Of course, this was the lowest. Is this exactly what we need?
That's the better of the 3 bids. That's the Honda motor that we wanted in. And, we were shocked that was the lowest bid. Right? Yeah. That was the exact one that we were going to pick out of the 3. That's the one we wanted to pick, and when he came in at the lowest bid, we were happy.
Thank you.
For the record, I heard 2 seconds. Who's the official second on this one?
Me. I seconded it.
And so did Tom. That's why.
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
I don't know. All in favor?
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to old business. At this time, I'm going to pass it to Mr. Duke for any old business.
Cause some trouble.
You can see our responses to old business in the agenda. I think we've got pictures of the work that was done on the sign. I'll get back to my exhibits here. And I've been in contact with the Department of Agriculture, as I briefed you 2 weeks ago. They have not gotten back to us for any additional permissions. They are in our area looking for snails.
Moving into snail space, I guess.
They have a big truck and everything. Little orange truck. Big African snail.
Track of like 1,400 of them.
They do.
That is so cool. We should get one of those. Thanks for passing that.
And the only other item that was on old business that's kind of dropped off that I wanted to bring up, if I may, is we had the limestone pier that I know that we had talked about impact fees and whether or not we could fix that. But when I say fix it, either rebuild it, fix it, whatever the case may be, so it can be used by the public again. And I didn't know if there was an update on that.
I think we talked about ARPA funds for, utilize ARPA funds for that. I don't have an update for you now. I'll get you all.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had. Anything from Vice Mayor, rest of the council?
Nothing.
No.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, sorry?
Motion adjourned.
Sorry.